right, welcome into a new episode. I believe episode 15, right? 15.
I think it's 15. Yes,
Something like that. 15.
It's a lot. We have to start using our toes to count. So actually, we might need to get to the next shoe. We have to get the shoe up.
Oh wow! Well, we're getting up there. We're excited. March Madness time. It's fun for us. Today we have a fun show. We'll recap the two games, talk a little bit about it, what happened this last weekend. We have Greg Gurley, the KU former player, another 33. I didn't know if you knew that. He was the other 33.
Wow.
And, now he's doing radio for Kansas. And then we'll also have our little From the Stands with our guy, Joe, who was at the last few games. I just want to check in and see how the games were and see what he thought of them.
Can I ask you a question, though, to start off? I feel like I'll play the host here.
As much as you want. You can take the whole show if you want.
Okay. Well, welcome in, everybody. We have Landen and Lucas who is here. I will do the read later on today.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, so you said that Greg Gurley was number 33, right? Yeah. So my question is when you see 33 on the court right now, and it's just us, right? It's just the two of us, right? We're just, father, son, just chilling. Do you see it and go, something doesn't look right or something doesn't feel right? Or are you like, hey, I'm cool with this number still being on the floor?
I'll say when I first saw it, it was a weird feeling. At first, like the first few years, it was weird,
Not first few couple times.
No, the first few years.
The first few years. But now, after 4.5 years of seeing it, I feel better.
Just as last weekend, I'm okay with it. No, it took probably like his first, at least his freshman year, watching and, seeing him come into the game, especially because there is a similar build. We're built a little different, but like, he's not a point guard or something like that.
Yeah,
like he's a big man who is wearing 33 like the year after I left, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But, now, I watched the game and I'm so far removed kind of in my head that he's number 33, and that's what I think of. But when I see jerseys in the stand, I still think, hey, that was Landen's 33. They're just
they bought it back then.
They're just wearing it now, But
okay.
No, it's been fun. I like seeing a 33 out there still.
Yeah, for me, I was number 31, and it was years. I guess 31 is not a very popular number, I guess. And it was years before Oregon had another guy who was 31. Yeah, so it had been long enough, so it didn't matter to me. I didn't care. But I was wondering because it's still so fresh, and literally there was a 33 on the court with Mitch at one point, and it was you wearing it. So it's been that recent. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah. Well, good question.
Okay.
But we'll move on now.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Let's get into this last weekend. It was a
Yes.
crazy weekend, and as normal, everyone's bracket. You start off all confident, like, oh yeah, this looks great, and we got this upset, and then just somehow everybody's bracket just goes completely out the door.
Not everybody's though, right? Matthews is 95%.
Yeah,
Producer Matthew.
Our producer Matthew wanted to let us know he's 90, but I promise you 95 percentile is still with a lot of red lines through a lot of this game.
Yeah, that's right.
95th percentile doesn't mean that his bracket is actually looking great. But no, it was a crazy weekend. Obviously a fun one, a ton of fun games.
Yeah.
Big 12 looked awesome. But I want to focus on the Jayhawks, obviously, on our podcast, it focuses on them. So, the first game, they had a 1-16 matchup. Texas Southern handled business, did what they needed to do. And then they run into Creighton, who, came back against San Diego State, who we thought was going to be the one that they ended up playing.
Yes.
And came back, won that game, had a guy who got hurt at the end. I believe he, recovered and still played, but came into this game and gave Kansas a run, made it a sweat.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on that game? Do you think that your perception of, their chances or how they're looking changed at all with that, either for the better, for the worse? What did that game really in this weekend in general tell you about where Kansas is at moving forward?
So what I saw was a team that, in my opinion, that is exactly where they want to be. And they did exactly what they needed to do. I mean, the 116 game in the first round, really all you want to do in that game is to not have any injuries, play some other players, just kind of get through that unscathed. And obviously doesn't happen very often, but it has happened where it's 16 beat a 1, right? And so it's possible. And it's funny because like right from the tip, you're just like, oh, those guys look pretty good, and they're pretty big.
Right. The first bucket is too good.
And they're down like whatever, or it's close and 3 minutes into it, and then next KU's on a 8-0 run or whatever. But so game one, it really was just doing what we knew that they could do. Now the second round, when you're playing that 8-9 winner. And again, I thought it was going to be San Diego State, and it probably should have been San Diego State if a couple things went their way. But and Creighton lost their big guy as well. So the big guy is in there because there were a couple times that Creighton's big guy sub, he didn't have the range that the starter that went down had. So that who knows what happens when that goes. But you know what? That's all part of the game. But what I saw was. Which I was so encouraged about, was Remy. I mean, my gosh, that guy, defensively too. And I don't know if we talk enough about his defense, but I mean, yes, the 20 points, and yes, he does some of the things. He's looking for the assists and stuff. But God, he is such a gnat. In a good way, when he gets with one-on-one defense, and his head is on a swivel, he's looking for those picks, and he just disturbs the other person so much. So I thought he did a great job. He got a little excited there. He got a little winded too. Sometimes you can tell he was like, I'm tired. But that's to be expected because he hasn't really played as much. But I would say that yes, there were stretches with Creighton that Kansas didn't look great, but they did what they needed to do to win and advance. And at this time of year and in this format where anything can happen, that's really all that you can ask for a team. And I thought guys really stepped up, but especially Remy.
I mean, yeah, if Remy is not in that game, I think Kansas loses. It's one of those games where you go into it, the team shoots a ridiculous amount or percentage from three. I forgot what it was, but they shot great. They made a ton of threes. It's one of those games where you go into it, the other team scores a bunch, you maybe don't, you bow out, 1 versus 9, that sucks, season's over. And there's Remy. I mean, Remy was the reason that Kansas won that game. The way he, his intensity. I think that defensively, a lot of it was because he held that kind of intensity, head on a swivel, active hands. That's all things that don't really take a lot other than just having a ton of energy and intensity, which he played with. Yeah. And if you look back just a few weeks ago when he was, just coming back off that injury, I remember saying and thinking he's a liability on defense. Like, he's going to hurt. Being in there on defense and stuff. And now it's like you want him there. He's bringing, that pesky little, vibe to the team, which is important. And then offensively, he looked good. I mean, he just completely showed out. And I'm telling you what, if he ends up, I just said this on a different podcast I was on, but if he ends up continuing like this, and leading Kansas deep into this tournament and, maybe even to a national championship game. I mean, he's going down in Kansas history because, like, with the way everything shaked out, him coming in for 1 year, all this stuff, he didn't really get to play. He's kind of, mysterious because nobody knew what was up with him. You knew what his potential was, but, like, you just didn't see it. And then all of a sudden, at this time of year, if he comes in and leads this team to the championship, I mean, oh my God, you might just retire his jersey,
right? Well, yeah. And if you're going to retire the jersey, you need to make sure you let CBS know who actually is, whoa, jeez.
I was eating. I was like, wait a second. I was watching
that
the
is so horrific.
She was like, that's not Remy. And then we paused it, and it was the worst. I don't know.
It was terrible.
That was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, think about Remy. Again, you talked about his intensity and things like that, but let's think about this too. There's not a whole lot of tape on this guy as well. True. If you think about the fact that his tendencies and the things that he does, although I mean, you could look back to his Arizona State,
but it's a different
time, different team, different personnel, things like that. What's so encouraging is the fact that there are, as you even mentioned, it wasn't the sharpest, crispest game for KU, but I love the fact that a guy like Remy can carry a team, but you don't have to have him carry the team every day every game, because you know what's going to happen. Ochai next game is probably going to have 27 and 8. You know what I mean? Like, it was this particular game in this particular time that you needed Remy to be who he was. And I will say one other thing. I love KU in transition. They are so smart, and they get that ball, they box out. All the guards tend to rebound down. They get that ball, and then they go, and it just keeps the other team on their heels, because you just go, and before you know it, and you're trying to find out where everybody is. There's somebody pop into a corner for an open shot, or somebody's cutting to the basket. There's not even really a second. Does he teach a specific secondary offense when it comes on the?
There's a specific one, but it's just very free flowing. Like there's some spots you got to get to and start in, and then there's some things that you can call off of it. But it's really like a guy like Remy right now has a ton of freedom, and it's funny you mentioned that, because that's something that. Sorry, there's dogs barking and stuff. Always something, right?
It's always something.
Always something. But I remember with the game just came up. It was a Purdue game that we played in, and I watched. I think it was just highlights, clips of it. But one thing that I forgot that the team did so well, and surprising I was on the team because I was pretty slow to get up the court. But man, that team would get up the court and the ball would move side to side so quick, and then a great shot was going on. And you see a lot of the same stuff now, and I feel like Coach Self just does such a great job throughout the season. He knows what the end goal is supposed to look like, and offensively, defensively, and the positions, the ball movement, all that stuff that he's emphasized for months and months. He just gets these teams so ready. You see it because of how fast things go. And it's not only the speed of all the players, but also the ball movement and trusting your teammates, knowing where people are going to be. You can get that ball moving, and it makes it look like it's going even faster than it actually is. And so I think that's a good testament to how he brings teams along throughout the year and just gets you prepared for this time of year. But speaking of Remy, now – he's been coming off the bench. He's the sixth man. Are you switching anything up? Are you starting him moving forward, or you just keep it as is and don't switch anything going into the next round?
I don't know how superstitious Coach Self is. Is he pretty superstitious?
He's pretty superstitious.
Okay. So then my answer is I wouldn't touch a thing. So I would have the starters be the starters, and then just have Remy be a Vinny Johnson's microwave off the bench, and have that burst of energy, like he did in this last one. And unless Coach felt that there was some reason to have him be there in the beginning, because again, as you and I have talked about many times, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And so I would just keep things the same. It's like, there's no reason to try and fix something that's not broken, for sure. But
I would say I would agree, but I could see where it happens is second half. If one of these halves don't go well, he will be quick to switch it up, and I could see him, whether it's against Providence or if they make it past that in the Elite Eight against Miami or Iowa State. If there's a first half that he's not feeling, and he thinks Remy can change it. I could see him starting the second half. But first half, I wouldn't. There's no changes I would make at this point in time either.
And here's the thing, too. If you think about it, when somebody is going to start, that whole pregame process and pregame just not so much the routine is the word I was looking for, is different than if you are not the starter. And so for Remy, because he has not been playing and you're trying to work him back in, maybe it takes a little bit of that pressure off of that pregame piece to it, where right from the very, very jump street that you have to be out there, you need to be going. It might actually be in his best interest to not start, let the game flow for a little bit, and then come in as that second boom, that second wave, where you come, maybe it's him and Mitch or something that come in and kind of change things up a little bit.
Well, he's such a off-script player that something I was just thinking about when you were saying that was it may benefit him, because if you think about how games start, usually beginning of the halves, but mainly the beginning of the game, there's a whole bunch of scripted play after scripted play. You know what that first 4 minutes or so until the TV timeout is going to somewhat look like. Eventually you get into a flow a few minutes in, but those first few possessions are very scripted.
Yes.
And for a player like him, that may not be your best way to start the game. It may be better to come into an unscripted type game where it's just like you check it in, you maybe call a play going up the court, but it's not something that's real set up that you want to get all the way to the last option or whatever of a play. And, that may be something also that's benefiting him coming off the bench.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's what you have with him is a ton of experience and a ton of games played under his belt. And so having a point guard that has been in some big games, not that ASU is playing at the elite level that KU does, but Arizona State during the time he was there was one of the top Pac-12 teams. So they're playing in a lot of games. And so there's a lot of experience, and I bet he's chomping at the bit to really show and showcase what he can do, and the fact that there's a reason why he decided to play on the biggest stage in college basketball. So I think it's going to be really fun, and I do think that he could truly be the difference between a KU, missing out, bowing out at a Sweet 16 or whatever, and making it to the finals, where I picked them to be. Just so you know, my bracket has KU in the finals.
Well, yeah, but you have Gonzaga winning the whole thing, so let's go ahead and get that out the way.
You promised you weren't going to say.
I think it's just this has to be. We have to be open with the listeners and let them know that.
I thought you were going to keep that. That was the secret.
What I was so surprised about? I was so surprised to log in and I saw the contest, and Joe had set it up, and we had some people come and enter, and there was like 3 people who picked Kansas out of like, I don't know, 40 or something. And I'm like, what kind of listeners do we have? Like, did we just get feelings?
We have very smart, pragmatic listeners who hey, you act like KU's in the Final Four every single year. Like, man, it's just like clockwork. It's not like that. It's not UConn. It's not UConn women's basketball that you can basically say we're going to be in the finals every year. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I get it. But in a year like this, where you have to admit Kansas is one of the teams that could win a national championship. There's a list of them that you go into the tournament. Like, here's the list of teams that are very strong chance of winning. If you're a Kansas fan and filling out a bracket, don't you just, if that's one of the teams, wouldn't you just have them going all the way to the championship?
When's the last time Kansas won a national championship?
2008, but that doesn't matter.
And in that time, between 2008 and 2009, would you say that KU every single year was one of the teams that could have won a national championship?
Not every year, but I would say
90% of the time.
They're always like a 1 or 2 seed or something. So yeah, but there's some 2 seed teams where it's like, all right, this team is like second tier or something like that. I could understand them being like, okay, I'm not gonna go with them, but I don't know. Anyways,
It's okay. It's all right. You should have those kind of classes on because you're a KU alum. So I get it. I get it. But those of us who are more, understanding of the history of Kansas, it's just, a little more discerning.
I guess it could also work like, if you get it wrong and Kansas wins, like
I know, right?
you're like, shoot, my bracket's done, but like, we just hung another banner, and I guess if then, I mean, that's a good way to do it. And then if they lose, you're like, oh, well, I guess they're right, the bracket's
it's like, what do you call it? It's like hedging your bets or something, basically. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Anyways, all right, well, let's go ahead and bring on Greg Gurley and ask him a little bit about what's going on with Kansas.
Perfect.
I got you. How do I sound?
The other number 33 with us today. Yeah. How's it going?
What's up?
How are you doing? How are things going? I know you get to travel. You got the best job. I mean, you just get to travel around and sit courtside at these unbelievable games. I mean, how's that going? Are you enjoying this run right now?
They even pay me. Yeah, it's awesome. So much fun. It's Big 12 tournament, you're there for 4 or 5 days, then Dallas. Yeah. Then we go to Chicago on Wednesday and hopefully New Orleans on next Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, I want to start off and ask, what are your thoughts? You've been through a lot of different teams. You've seen a lot of different teams. Now coming off of the first weekend, they got through to the Sweet 16. What are your thoughts on this Kansas team, compared to some of the other ones you've seen who have entered into the Sweet 16, game with some success and then moved on to the Final Four? Like, does this team have the pieces? What do you see that this team maybe does a little differently or, better, worse?
I think I'll start on the things that worry me a little bit, and it's our inside in the paint. And not because of Dave, just because basically all we have is Dave, and Mitch is a bit hobbled, and Mitch had a really good Big 12 tournament. But you know better than anybody how much Bill wants to play through the paint, whether you attempt a shot or whatever. He wants the ball to touch the paint, flatten the defense out, force a double, create lanes, whatever. And, Dave's still hobbled. I mean, he's a warrior. I mean, his foot hurts and he's playing through it. And the only thing that'll fix it is time. And the one thing he doesn't have is time. And you dealt with a ton of injuries. We all did. And Dave will never be totally honest about how bad it hurts. But didn't have a great game on Saturday against Creighton, but he made big plays down the stretch. And the block with 45 seconds to go. We finished the game. Now the positives, and I didn't mean that as a negative. I'm just saying I think where we have some issues, but we got so many guys out on the perimeter. CB is playing at a great pace. Ochai is the one guy that in this 7-game winning streak hasn't played like the Ochai of early. Part of that's how defenses play him. Part of that's, he's just in a funk. I don't think it's tired legs. I just think he's got to have some success early on Friday against Providence, and we can ride him all the way to a title. But I think this team's different in the fact that we were one team like the whole year up until about 2 weeks ago, and now we're completely different when you throw Remy into the mix. Remy's always been confident. It's just he's battled injuries. He's battled, him and Bill getting on the same page, and that's what you're going to get when you have transfers, because a transfer shows up in August. And Landen, you know it better than anybody. Bill needs to trust you, and it's not a bad thing that they didn't have that yet. It's just time. And I think he's finally gotten to that point to where, all right, I can put him in there, and I trust what he's going to do. I want him to hunt for shots. I want him to make flashy passes. I want him to get to the rim, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's completely changed the makeup of a 30-win team in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty amazing stuff. And I can tell you, we're bigs, and so we tend to talk about bigs a lot here. So my question then is you've mentioned the injuries to Dave and to Mitch. Who's most likely, in your opinion, and it could not, obviously we never know which way it's going to go, but who's most likely outside of Mitch or Dave that is one of the bigs that is going to come in and actually contribute some meaningful minutes in this rest of this year?
It's such a short bench on the bigs, and at least we have guys. It's just a matter of have they performed in moments when the lights are bright and the stage is like it's going to be next weekend. I'd say it's KJ and Zach. But is it KJ? I think is probably a little more. Zach the other night got an opportunity when we were blowing out Texas Southern, and he struggled offensively. Now, Zach single-handedly helped us win the Oklahoma game at home when we weren't playing very well. Zach came in, so it's hard just because they just haven't had the reps, and you guys know how big that stage is coming up this weekend and next, and they're going to have to grow up fast. In answer to your question, I guess I'll say KJ just because of his activity. Not that Zach isn't active, but I think they're just different bigs because Zach's more of a stretch five, and KJ's going to be like a Jamari, a guy that can just run and jump, or Silvio, and give us that spark for like 2 minutes. Like, it's not going to be long minutes. So if I had to give you an answer, I'll go with KJ.
Yeah, I like KJ a lot too. We had this discussion a few months ago to see, come tournament time, who would it be if it needs to go to one of them? And I think KJ showed some really good things in spurts at the end of some games that were really close, where he had to, play defense or get a stop, and he did what he needed to do.
Well, and again, it as well as anybody. Bill's a field coach, and he's going to evaluate the game, and one game may not suit KJ and it'll suit Zach, and vice versa. I mean, really, it's just like on Saturday against Creighton. Joe Yesufu came in, who's been a big spark for us at times. He didn't play well, and so what does Bill do? Takes him out, tries Jalen Coleman-Lands, and Jalen Coleman-Lands played well. He had a big offensive rebound in the first half. He had a big three when we were trying to create a little separation in the second half. And then he actually did a good job guarding their big guy underneath a couple possessions that forced a turnover. So that Joe Yesufu could be great on Friday against Providence, or it could be Jalen Coleman-Lands again. And Bill is that kind of play it by ear, feel guy, whatever. And he doesn't really care about your feelings, and that's not a dig. He's like, all right, you didn't play well. I'm going to try this guy. You go over there and pout all you want, but I'm trying to win.
Yeah, 100%. And you know him really well, going into now the second weekend where a lot of people, maybe even the coaching staff, thought we were going to have as this Final Four in Chicago is not the same teams. Do you think that he's, the teams I was a part of, we always seemed to run into exactly who we were expected to play against. It was always, the 2, 3, 4, 5 seeds that, we saw on the other side, and we were like, okay, we're getting prepared, and then it was time. There was never really this kind of switch up where all of a sudden it's Iowa State versus Miami. Do you think that he's mentioning this at all, or is this something where it's like just they're still on the other side?
We'll go back to Thursday and Friday. That Creighton team that we played, it's kind of a similar deal. Didn't have their big guy, didn't have their point guard. Everybody's talking, hey, this Creighton team has got a short bench. They're only going to play 6 guys. They don't have the defensive player of the year anymore. Should be a cakewalk. You know what he's telling them? Hey, this is exactly the kind of team that can beat you. You don't want to mess with a wounded dog because they'll bite you. And Creighton did. And really, it was a 1-point game, and they had the ball with under a minute to go. Granted, we won by 7. So similar kind of thinking and mentality. All right, you guys were expecting to play Iowa. The whole country was saying Iowa's better than you. We saw that on, brackets, Sunday brackets. They don't even get out of the first round. Thought we might play Providence if it wasn't Iowa. So this one, I get it. They're the next highest seed. But as you know, as a motivator and a manager of egos and a psychologist and everything that Bill has to be, he's got to tell them, hey, nobody is picking anybody but you to advance. That means that everybody's going to be against you. Everybody, whether you were, if you weren't an Arizona fan, you were rooting for TCU last night, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves an underdog. And we're in that. We're the number 1 seed, and there's 3 underdogs. So I guarantee you he's selling that to his guys. And the good thing for us is, a lot of teams aren't as veteran-based as we are. We've got Dave, Oach, Jalen, CB. They've been around. Now, they haven't been tournament tested because, CB and Jalen have played in now 4 games, but before this, 2, one of which they lost. Didn't have a tournament 3 years ago, got blown out by USC. So we say we're veteran, but we haven't really had a lot of tournament time because 2 years are basically lost.
Hey, Rick, so how long have you been the radio guy for Key?
Radio guy, I believe this is my 11th year. And then prior to that, I was Jack Television Network for 10 plus years. So kind of been around for about 20.
20 years. So you've seen, obviously, Coach Self and how he just operates. What's the biggest change, if there has been one, that you've seen in the 20 years you've been around Coach Self at KU?
I think with Bill, he adapts with the game and with his personnel, more importantly. So I believe that was probably Landen's senior year when it was you. Yeah, it was you as the big, very similar to this year. And when it was always, high-low, 3 around 2, whatever you want to call it. Then your senior year, personnel-wise, kind of forced his hand because you had to play 32 minutes a game. We had to. And you were great in that role. And the reason it worked was because Josh could guard all 5 positions. And then I think he kind of got into that, 4 around 1, as I think our game has become more perimeter oriented. Like when I was playing, it was a system. And this is what you did. This is where you run on the fast break. This is the screen you set. Bill and I think a lot of the innovative coaches have all changed. Whether you watch the way Golden State plays. I mean, when we were growing up, if there was a 3-on-1 break and you took a 3-pointer, you might get kicked off the team.
Totally.
Now that's a good shot. That's it. So not only has Bill had to adapt to the game physically and on the court, he had to adapt mentally because he's an old school guy too. He liked the high-low and the throw it to the corner of the backboard and Landon gets a dunk. Just run that every time until they stop it. Now it's just different. So you either evolve or you get left behind.
Yeah, I kind of got to see that transition happen because it was that junior, senior year. We had Perry Ellis the year before, which obviously he was playing a huge role. So we would always, mainly have 2 bigs in. He would rarely play the 5. And then from Perry, we went to Josh. And then all of a sudden, we, towards the end of that season, my junior year, there were a few times I think Perry maybe had an injury or there's for some reason we had to, game plan a 4-round 1 that we implemented a few times. And then my senior year was just like full blown. Hey, you guys remember that 4-round 1 that we did the year before? That's how we're going to run offense. Right. And then, Josh and them, they were so good at that, weave and get downhill. And I would just go up and set screens and, we would keep that 4-round 1. And then since then, it's just kind of been, they went back to the 2 game a little bit. I think with some spurts with Doak, and I think they tried him with David some or whatnot. But for the most part, since I've been gone, it's been a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, honestly, this year we play some 5 around none. I mean, you're rotating Mitch around, or if Zach's in there or KJ, it's kind of 5 around none, and the little 3-man motion out top where what does Bill talk about constantly? Let's get downhill. He says downhill about 5,000 times a game because he wants to create angles and leverage and force the defense out of their comfort zone, force help. He either wanted to get the ball to guys like you in the paint, or he wanted Frank and Devontae and Josh and Svi to dribble into the lane and draw a defense, pitch to the corner, throw an alley-oop, or get fouled. And that's the epitome of this year's team, except when Dave's in there. You know, he wants to get the play that we ran 9 million times, little misdirection, throw it to the corner of the backboard. It's still as much basketball as you guys watch, and you guys know Kansas basketball well. It amazes me when we get alley-oops. I mean, when we ran winter against TCU and Ochai got the dunk of the year, we run that play.
Other teams are using that play. I mean, that play is so known, and it still works all the time.
And it only works like 3 times a year, let's say.
Yeah, but you pull it out at the right time, and it'll be perfect.
And it just drilled into you guys. And this year's team definitely is, like I said, get downhill, create leverage, create angles. And Creighton didn't allow us to do that. I think that's how they kind of mucked it up, where I'm assuming Creighton tape's going to be watched a lot, especially by Providence, who shoots threes way better than Creighton. I mean, if you look at the numbers, they were not telling our guys to let them shoot threes, but, you know, they were 0 for their first 20 against San Diego State from beyond the arc. Did you know that? And they look like the best three-point shooting team in the country.
Of course they do.
But, and I'll say this a lot, as you guys know, we get everyone's best shot. When guys haven't made a 3 all year, they're going to make a couple against us for whatever reason. We've been around long enough to know that's just how it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I before we let you go, we've talked a lot about this year's team and whatnot. I want to know, you've been there, you've been at a lot of games through this past, you said 11 years now doing radio, and then your time there, I'm sure some time in between as a fan. Do you have any memorable games that stick out to you? We always like to ask our guests, what's that game that's like, I'll never forget this. What was that game for you where you were a part of it and you felt like, wow, this was an experience?
Well, my senior year, I wasn't a 3-year starter like you, so the only game that I ever started was my senior year, last home game. And
that's what Coach Self told me on my recruiting trip, that was going to be the only time that I was starting.
That's probably going to be your only shot.
I got lucky, but
that particular game was similar to like our game against Texas the other day. It was us at Oklahoma State. Whoever won the game won the Big 8 that year. It was 1995, and I'll never forget. I got knocked out, hitting the temple, inadvertent elbow, out cold, concussion, middle of the court, unconscious. They picked me up, take me to the locker room, slap me around, smelling salts, whatever. Said, "You good?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." I went back in the game. Nowadays, they would have probably.
Oh yeah, no. Nowadays, that's your concussion protocol.
Duct taped me to a gurney and whatever. So we won the game. Bryant Reeves. It was a very cool game because Bryant Reeves played a long time in the NBA. 0 points. Didn't score. Only game in his career as a senior. 0. Greg Ostertag held him to nothing. And then the guy I guarded, Randy Rutherford, had 45. Which, I had 15, which was
45.
For me was a massive amount. But yeah, so I was a minus 30 on that deal. But we won, and we won the Big 8 title, and it was a big deal. But I still think the best game ever. You weren't a part of that one, but the Missouri game in 2012.
I wasn't a part of it, but that was my recruiting trip. So I got to experience. I've been so lucky because not only did I get to play in some crazy games myself, but then the one game that I got to go on my recruiting visit and sit behind the bench was this crazy Missouri game, which it's like, if there's a game that people remember that's not one of the ones I was able to play in, it's that one.
And you're not going to say no after that recruiting. You're going to be like, yeah, I want to play here.
Yeah, he knows. There was no chance. And what's crazy though is I was there with Tony Parker, who was a a big man recruit.
UCLA. He went to UCLA, I think.
Shabazz Muhammad was the other one. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There were some top recruits there that actually said no, and it's like, something else must have happened because there's no way that you could say no after seeing that.
I'm going to answer the question for you. I got to think your favorite, and maybe I'm wrong, the comeback against West Virginia.
You know, that is a favorite of mine for sure. There's a lot. I mean, it's tough. I really like the comeback just because that was so crazy there at the end. The Oklahoma game with Buddy Hield. You know, the reason I would lean towards that is because of the hype building up. And you rarely see a 1 versus 2 that gets all this hype and then actually live. I mean, I remember we were number 1 in like coaches and they were number 1 in the USA Today or whatever. And it was like, that rarely happens to begin with, but then to lead to 3 overtimes and Buddy in Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, after that game, it was one of those things where like, it wasn't until I got home and I sat down where I was like, that was nuts. Like, I can't believe that.
I'll never forget. I stayed at Bill's house that night and we stayed up till probably 4 a.m. and watched the replay of the game.
It was so hard to go to sleep after that.
and we're looking at each other like how does that, like everything has to go perfect and then you got to get lucky. Like there was really no mathematical reason we should have won that game.
No, and I almost blew it. I almost blew it with the
over the back.
Yes.
I remember thinking, I'm like, if this cannot be how this game ends, like please
you watch that.
Let this end.
You think about all the little things in that game. Remember at the end of the half when Frank strips a guy clean, they call a foul.
Yeah.
And then Bill gets teed up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And you're like, it was like a 4-point possession with like 2 on the clock. But every little thing like that had to happen to go into the multiple overtimes. It's just
the butterfly effect. Well, I will tell you that as a parent, I hated that game. So I can just tell you right now, especially when he did the foul, and I'm sitting there going, "Are you serious? Like they may lose because of what he just did." And I'm like, he needs to shut off all social media because he's about to get destroyed.
Or it could have been a smart play, and he fouled the right guy.
Yeah, you know what? That's what it was.
Yeah, we will see.
He's a heady player.
I'm telling you, I got to throw out though the Kentucky game for you, Landon. That's probably Dad's favorite.
That one was fun too.
It's probably
I mean, it was so cool because not only were there games like that, but then because of the streak, there were so many Big 12. Like even I think my freshman or sophomore year with the West Virginia game at home, a different West Virginia game.
Where you blocked the shot.
But that was another one where it went into overtime, and it was like we were a part of games that would have had a big feeling but like with the streak on the line, it just enhanced everything by so much that it just felt like every game was 10 times bigger than it needed to be because of that streak.
It's always amazing how so many little things have to happen. Like this year, think of all the games we won at the buzzer to get a share of the league title. DeJuan's layup against Iowa State at home. We were down 1. Down by 16 against K-State. Yeah. No chance in that. We looked awful. And to come back and get a share of it and then earn the 1 seed, like you're right. All the little things that happen that make a season are just nuts. So now we need some more little things to happen correctly against the Friars. We can't lose to Friars, can we?
No. It's not possible.
I don't even know what that is.
Google it.
Yeah.
Well, it was great having you on. Enjoy this week. It'll be a fun one. And hopefully Kansas takes care of business and then hopefully we can get out. I'm trying to convince my dad here to take a trip with me down to New Orleans and watch Kansas in the Final Four.
And so do this podcast on
exactly. That's what we were talking about. So
I'll go down early and scout out a good place. We'll get a big old pitcher of Hurricanes or something.
Perfect.
Works for me. Twist my arm.
33. All right, man. Well, thanks. And, enjoy this week. We'll talk later.
All right. Rock Chalk. Thanks for having me.
Take care now.
All right. Well, it was good to catch up with the fellow 33, get a little bit of insight from him. And yeah, it was funny to hear that his favorite game that he remembers was the game he gave up 40, what was it, 45?
45 or something like that.
That's an interesting one to remember.
Yeah, I mean, but it's funny when we ask these questions. Sometimes it's so different, right? Because sometimes it's personal, like I was involved directly in something, or it could be, I watched and from the stands or from the bench or whatever. So it's nice. We've been getting a nice mix of answers, which has been fun.
Yeah, no, I love it. It was fun to catch up with him. If there's anybody that knows Coach Self, it's that guy. I mean, I remember when, I was there, he even mentioned after the Oklahoma game, he's over at his house till 4 a.m.
Hanging out.
I mean, him and Coach Self, they were really close. And, I'm sure it's fun to be able to, I mean, that's his job. He goes, travels, does radio, talks Kansas basketball, and hangs out with Coach Self. And that's, that's just he gets paid to do that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, it was good to catch up with him. I want to move on to Joe. I know we're going a little long, but we could talk with Joe for a little bit and then we'll up after that.
Let's do it.
All right. Before we move on to our next segment, Dad, we have a new sponsor, okay? This sponsor, and just as I memorized the last one.
You just got it. The other one now.
Of course, they hit me with the new one. But this one is brought to you by Honey.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in this spot before where you are shopping for something online, you get to the checkout, and when it asks you for the promo code,
yes,
you start Googling and trying to find out a way to save money, spend all that time.
Yes.
Well, thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is the thing.
Okay.
Honey is the free tool that scours the internets for you and finds the one that fits best for your cart. Here's how it works. You're shopping. You're checking out. You press the Honey button that pops up. You click Apply Coupons. You wait a few seconds. And next thing you know, you watch the price go down and down and down.
Wow.
Right? So if you haven't already downloaded Honey, you could be straight up missing out. By getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this show. I never recommend something that I don't believe in.
Okay. All right. Hey.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. No. Is that it? Your recommendation? Is that the last line, or is it more?
What's so funny is right before that, it asked me to tell a personal story about using it.
Well, I'm about to use it because I think that's a great idea because it's so true.
Great.
I get to it, I see promo code, and I start thinking, gosh, I wonder if I missed out for something.
I know about it, which now I know about it. So,
let's do it.
But now you can get Honey for free. Join the honey.com/March Madness. That's honey.com/March
Madness. Okay. But there is no 800 number you need to call.
No, nothing for gambling problems or anything like that.
Okay. All right.
Just sweet, Honey. We're just worried about saving money now. There's not about gambling. So now we're
got it. Okay.
You got to balance it out. A little bit of gamble, a little bit of save, all that stuff.
So try not to gamble the money you save is what you're saying.
Well, you save the money so that you can have more to gamble.
Oh, okay.
Until you have to call the hotline, then
you need to shut it down.
All right,
you need to use it for your next time. You need to have a personal story.
I will have a story next time. Okay, I'll download it. I'll have a story.
Okay, all right.
Anyways, we'll move on to our next guest and bring on Joe now. Joe, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up?
Doing well. How are you both doing?
We're doing great. But I mean, you're the one that got to go and experience this first weekend of Kansas basketball. Tell us about how it was. Was it fun? How was Fort Worth? Did you go to any what is it out there? Rodeo stuff or do anything fun out there?
Rodeo.
I mean, aren't they known for rodeos out there or something?
Oh, totally. Totally. It was at Dickey's Arena, which is a relatively new arena in Fort Worth, but they do have rodeos there. And right across the street in the parking lots were like different barns or farms, containers, if you will, with like different livestock names. So there's definitely a big rodeo presence there in any of that this trip. But it was great. It was great to be there. Obviously, due to the results, sweated that one out for a bit. But it was a fantastic weekend and great to be a part of the fans and to keep the momentum rolling.
Well, Joe, we are, we always try to keep this show in some kind of orderly fashion, under an hour, and then we always end up running over. So we're running over, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to include you in our sub in, sub out. So do you mind playing the game with us and doing a little bit of sub in, sub out?
I would love to. Let's do it.
All right. So first question, and this is the one I came up with one, and my dad came up with one. Okay.
I came up with a better one.
You didn't like the one that I came up with, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts, and I have my own opinion on this. But are you subbing in or subbing out that the tournament is more about having good luck than people realize?
Joe?
So let me.
I'm subbing in for that for sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Are you good? You cut out for a little bit. You're subbing.
Oh yeah,
in.
I'm good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. So you're subbing in.
Oh yeah, I'm subbing in for sure. I think it's such a big part of winning the tournament is the break you get initially with the initial bracket, and then what happens along the way. A foul call, a player getting hurt, foul trouble, anything like that. Like 2017, Landen, the year you Frank Mason, Devontae Graham made that run. I remember how important it was to the fans that you not get into foul trouble in the first half, because then it's like, where do we go from there? So something just as simple as that, a player getting an early foul, is a huge factor, and especially with other bracket luck. I mean, look at the draw that KU has now found themselves into by just taking care of business on their own and factors completely outside of their control. So I'm subbing in big time in that.
All right, Dad, you subbing in or subbing out on that?
It's tough because I'm one of those believers that you kind of make your own luck. I mean, the fact that somebody gets into foul trouble or not, that's not luck. That's you being out of position and jumping late. That's not luck. But I will say the reason why I'm on the fence on this is because there are some lucky situations. For instance, a higher seed having a really horrific game on the other side and losing to a lower seed who has no business even being on the same floor in some cases, and then they get blown out the next game because they're not at the same level. To me, that is a lucky break that you didn't play the higher seed in that circumstance. Or somebody, not luck, because you never want to say luck when somebody gets hurt, but there are times when a player gets hurt, right before a game before you play them, and that player being out could have been the difference. So I don't know. I don't know if I love it I'm not a hard yes on it, because I just feel like so much it's just kind of you predetermine a lot of what happens. You create your own luck. So can I say no to either?
Yeah, no. You could sub out. I mean, I guess I'll sub out officially. I asked this question because I actually had somebody. I was golfing with a group, and some of the guys in the group were trying to ask me about tournaments, and how was it and playing it. And the question that got asked was this one right here. They said, how much as a player did you feel like the tournament was more about luck, than it was about other things? And my answer was that it's while you're in the moment, I never looked at it that way. I was you just have to focus on executing your job the next game, executing that play, doing the best that you can, control the things you can control. However, looking back on it, it is crazy how much there is a lot of stuff that you cannot control that has a major, major impact on the whole thing in general. I mean, all the way down to, a ref's decision in a different game let's just take the TCU Arizona game last night where the guys at half court and gets mauled and, it goes down the other way. It could have been called a foul and it wasn't. The team that's sitting, whoever's, Houston, they're one call away from playing TCU, it's just so small. And that's such a big difference and something that you have no control over at all.
Is that luck though? Is that luck? I mean, you know what I mean? Or is that just?
I would say not luck as much as, and you're right, there's maybe wording. It's more so there's a lot more that's out of your control in the tournament that has a big impact directly on you because, even shooting nights and the way that things go and just small things. It's like there's some things that, in other games that you can't control, sometimes even your own game that you can't control. That it's just that's the difference between maybe a team going out in the early rounds, a team winning a championship. Think about that Villanova team that had the most memorable game winner that I can think of, and they were in an Elite Eight game against us, where I remember Wayne was banking in shots off the top of the glass, all kinds. Devontae was banking in shots and all the things were going in our direction until there was one call made on Devontae where he dove for a ball and he got the ball and for some reason they called a foul. And let's just say that goes differently. The most memorable basket, in the history, or one of them besides Leitner and stuff, doesn't even happen and they don't win a championship. And it's just so interesting how, it's one of those butterfly effect things that during the regular season you don't notice as much because it just results in one game or whatever. That's just on this massive scale of 64 teams where small things happening all over could directly impact every other team. And it's a
snowball effect. It's a snowball effect too, because like you said, Arizona, Houston went one call away from playing TCU. This could also affect, KU if they're lucky enough to get to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Maybe Arizona is not the best matchup for them. It really is wild and so sensitive. And to support that, in my opinion, is the overall number one seed. The best consensus teams rarely win this thing. Mm-hmm. So it is so hard, and it's not just how good of a team you are, how good of a year you had. It's also just matchup based, and one little factor one way or another going for you or against you can really, as you alluded to, have a major effect.
Yeah. Well, here's our other one, and I thought that question was pretty good, but here's the one that my dad came up with. Are you subbing in or subbing out that a double-digit seed is going to make the Final Four?
I'm
subbing the ones that are left. So who do we have left? We have
Miami,
Iowa State, Michigan,
and then St. Peter's.
Michigan, St. Peter's. So Miami, Iowa State, Michigan, St. Peter's. Are any of them making it out of this second weekend?
I'm subbing out on that and doing that hopefully as a KU fan as well, because
the two
if one does make it, that's bad news for the Jayhawks. But no, I'm subbing out on that. I think that none of those teams will make it. I think I think Kansas is true. I think the winner of Kansas Providence will get out of the Midwest. And I don't think Michigan's going to beat Villanova. And I don't think St. Peter's would have run. That's awesome. I think that stops in the next round as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only reason I thought of this is because there's something magical going on in Michigan. I'm telling you, I think the St. Peter's situation is they've had their run. I think everything's been fun and great and all that, and I think that's going to come to an end. You have two double digits playing each other, so one is going to make the Elite Eight, but then they're going to run up against KU, and I think that's going to be over. But I don't know why. When after seeing, Michigan play these first couple games, that it just feels like if there's a chance that it could be Michigan that makes it into that final. Because if they do get past Villanova, then it is Arizona or Houston
Yeah, that's gonna be our producer Matthew just texted us and said Michigan crushes Nova. You heard it here first.
So that's what I'm saying.
Strongly about Michigan right now against Nova.
So that's what I'm saying. Well, we should listen to him because he's 95%, right?
I know his bracket's been pretty damn low. So this is an expert we're talking about here.
So we really need to get him on here because he actually knows what he's talking about. But I'm just saying. So I just think that there's, you never know, right? But I think of the double digits that are left, seeded that are left, Michigan would be my big choice. So I would say I'm going to sub out because I think Michigan does it.
Yeah, they'll earn it if they do.
I think they have the best chance. Obviously, I like Miami too, but KU I just feel can handle business there. But Michigan, I think that they could get past Nova if they have a good game and play well, and then it's just having one good game to make the Final Four. I would absolutely love to see somehow St. Peter's make it even further, and if somehow they were to squeak by to the Final Four, which they got some good teams, but honestly not the best teams that people thought. They've already beat one of them in Kentucky.
Yeah.
If they squeak past Purdue and then all of a sudden they're looking at a North Carolina, that would be so crazy if they won. But that's solely from like the wishful hoping that they make it through. But I think Michigan has the best chance. So I will. I'm going to sub out though and say that they don't make it. I think they'll make it past Villanova. I do think they'll win that game, and I think that they lose to Arizona in the Elite Eight. But
if Arizona gets by Houston, but
if they get by, yeah, I think Arizona's going to get by Houston. Yeah. But yeah, who knows at this point in time?
Right.
I don't know. Joe. So what are your thoughts now? Are you going to this next game in Chicago? I know you're traveling all around. Are you going to be there or no?
Yeah, no. Unless I want to get divorced, I think I'm going to stay home this weekend here and take one off. But
smart.
Fingers crossed. I do have my trip booked for New Orleans, and if KU makes it and survives and advances to the Final Four, we're going to New Orleans. So I'm taking this weekend off to rest, recharge, and hopefully celebrate in the Big Easy the following week.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate having you on as always, and enjoy this weekend. As a KU fan, it's a big one.
Oh yeah, these are some of my favorite days actually leading up to the games when you make it to the Sweet 16, because you just know the Final Four is right there, and not a lot of schools, only 15 other schools and fan bases are feeling this right now. So it really is a fun time of year, and hopefully we'll be celebrating this time come Sunday.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yep, anytime. Have a good one, guys.
Take care, Joe.
Bye.
So we got a stat from our producer. An 11 seed has made the Final Four in each of the past two tournaments. UCLA last year and Loyola Chicago in the tournament before. So I guess it's just setting up for Michigan to be the one this year to make
you just never know. I can tell you, though, it's the beautiful part about the NCAA tournament is that anything can happen. Literally now that a 16 has beat a 1, that anything can happen. It used to be, if you're 16, at least we knew that wasn't. But a 15 beats a 2 every single year. 12 beats a 5 multiple times, right? Every single year. And so, it's super exciting for fans. It's that music. I don't know why I get like goosebumps when I hear. I'm telling you, it's all so exciting. But in the end, it's one of 8 teams that end up cutting down the nets, right? It just, in the end, it always comes down to one of a few teams. So
I just tried to find the other day what the highest seed to win was, and I don't know if I did enough searching, but what I found was an 8 seed. I believe that it was Villanova. Yeah, as an 8 seed was the highest to win.
Wasn't that like 1980, or am I thinking?
But didn't UConn win as like a 7 or 8 or something like that?
Well, I remember that's the year they went through and had to win a bunch of games in the Big East tournament, and so that that could very well have been one of the high ones as well.
Yeah, Nova in 1985.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and that was the highest as an 8 seed. So, all this craziness happens, and then it's like, there's still – it still narrows it down. There's probably going to be one of those top, 3 seeds or something that are going to cut down the net. But it's still fun. I mean, the thing with those programs is they're national champ. It's weird because for Kansas, if you don't make a Final Four at least, you could kind of celebrate that. But it's championship, and then it's like everything else. We're fighting for that. As those other teams, Sweet 16 right now is like making it to the championship game and winning the championship for a school like Kansas. I mean, that's St. Peter's and stuff. This is like, this is just complete free roll. And then, really, at the end of the day, some other team may be cutting down the championship, nets and stuff, one of those top seeds. But like every game that they can win is championship games for teams.
No question. The thing is that, and I remember even during my time at Oregon, we had not been to the NCAA tournament in like a gazillion years. And so for us, just actually making the tournament was a huge, huge, huge deal. And so for a lot of teams, that really is it. And I can tell you too, who loves making those mid-majors and low-major schools? The people that love making it are the head coaches, because that's how they get the better jobs.
Well, so,
that's all you got to do.
Everything about this St. Peter's thing is just crazy. You see the coach on TV all the time.
Yes.
I mean,
that's all it takes.
It's so big for the programs. It's fun because, they can't – it's a tournament structure where, making a Sweet 16 for somebody like them, you can hang banners about that. You could talk about that forever and stuff. It has no impact on who wins the championship ultimately. There's gonna be somebody else who does. But, like, they have their own milestones to celebrate. Like you said, even just making the tournament for some teams is a big accomplishment and stuff. I just happened to be at the school where, like, it was the disappointment unless you went to the Final Four or better. Yeah. But, that comes along with going to a school like Kansas. And the tournament's always fun. I'm just, now that my bracket's just completely toast, I'm just hoping that everybody else's bracket gets completely obliterated. So I'm rooting for I hope St. Peter's makes it to the championship game. I hope Michigan plays. Like, I hope it's, some crazy, just everything. So,
well, we need to at least book our plane tickets and be prepared, because
I know. Like,
I think KU's got this. I feel pretty good about them making it to.
I do too. So we should. I mean, they're in a situation right now, and just think about it. And I'm jealous being on those 2 teams that finished the Elite 8. They have 3 teams with them in Chicago that not one of them are in the top 35 FinCon going into this tournament. Top 35. Like, really? Like, that's awesome. I mean, as a fan now, it's awesome, and I love it. But, like, as a player, it's like, damn, that you like be looking at that like this is. I mean, that's 3 games that you should ultimately, on most days, win by 10 plus. I know it's a tournament, but those 3 teams you should be beating by 10 plus. A pretty easy game, and that's to make the Final Four.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, Greg just said it earlier. You're up by or down by 1 or something like that with Creighton with less than a minute.
No, and it's the tournament, so it's going to be.
You never know. It's not going to be a cakewalk for sure.
For sure, it's not going to be a cakewalk, but it just is. I mean, they have got it set up. So we should look into it.
Yeah.
And try to get down there and see them. The last time I think. I don't know. There might have been some New Orleans before, but I remember, I think that the Kentucky championship game that I watched before I went to Kansas
was in New Orleans.
It was New Orleans. So they got some good history there, at least making it and then making a championship. So we'll see what happens. But we should look into that, because I'm sure prices are already going through the roof.
Just use it as a budget, right?
No, we don't have that.
Doesn't Honey pay you a ton for that read?
No, that read was not good enough.
That wasn't worth a couple round trip tickets to.
I don't know. Maybe if our listeners go and just like everybody downloads Honey, we'll get some kind of bonus. We can go.
Maybe. Okay. Well.
Anyway,
we'll have to figure it out.
Well, that was fun to recap, talk a little bit about the tournament, and we will be back next week, Hopefully not with a wrap-up show. Hopefully it's a show of us down in New Orleans or heading down there and excited to watch Kansas play in the Final Four. But these 2 games coming up are going to be huge for all these fans, coaches, players. I mean, the difference between Sweet 16 exit to Providence and making it to the Final Four and beyond is life-changing for a lot of these guys. And so it's crazy how that works, but that's just the name of the game. And a guy like Remy, like I said before, I mean, his life it could be changed depending on how these next few weeks go. So,
and I bet you they'll have his picture right next time.
God, they better have but I just want to be listening into the conversation with the CBS studio and hear like when they got. I'm sure enough people tweeted at them that somebody who was in charge of the graphics heard it and like what did the boss or the guy were like? What is this? How did this happen on CBS? Like the primetime game, everything, and you got Remy Martin. They did some. We did some digging, and everybody, all the Kansas fans, found out who it really was. Do you know?
I saw that. Yeah, Marcus.
Marcus. So it's at least it was a Kansas player, but that was hilarious. And I didn't know it was Marcus at first. I thought it was somebody who was working the graphics and wanted to put his own face
like just some dude, some
I thought he took a headband and threw it on and like took a selfie and like
it just is like
so he could show his friends like I played at Kansas.
They used the wrong image. Like, oh, that wasn't supposed to be. That's supposed to go to my friends.
Man. But anyways, all right. Well, we'll be back next week with a new episode. Thank you for listening in. Of course, I always say this till the end, but please continue to share it, like, subscribe, leave comments. We like to get feedback. So even if you're not happy with us, let us know.
Feedback's gonna be you guys ran way too long on this one.
I know.
But we had a lot. It was a lot of stuff to talk about.
It was an hour and 15. It's not too bad. But it is what it is. We crammed it in. It's March Madness. We got to go a little overtime. So.
There you go. All right. We'll see you next week.